Got it. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is the Concilio Latino, and this is our monthly meeting, Friday, November the 18th. And the Concilio Latino is a network for individuals and organizations working with the Latino community in West Contra Costa County, which meets monthly to identify needs, to share resource information, and advocate for gaps services for the Latino community at the local, state, and federal levels, and specifically address the needs of the monolingual Spanish-speaking community. Concilio Latino partners with coalitions of diverse civil and human rights organizations to advocate and participate in activities, events, and movements towards social justice for all underserved and underrepresented and targeted communities. We also recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muecma, Karkan, Ohlone peoples, and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. So welcome everyone, and we'll start with our introductions. My name is Consuelo Lara, and I am retired teacher from the district and also a facilitator here. And I'm also on the on the County Board of Education. And we'll start with Madeline.
Hi, I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and I'm on between two teachers with my friend Consuelo. And I'm also here representing the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County.
Great. And Sonia, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi everybody. Sonia Bustamante, Chief of Staff for Supervisor Joya. I'm off video because I'm driving, so I hope you forgive me for that. I also sit on the board of RISE, and I'm a resident of San Pablo, and my 12-year-old attends Summit K2 in El Cerrito.
Okay, very good, thank you. And Magdalena, why don't we start with
Hi, good morning. Magdalena. I am the West County District Representative for Marc Desaulniers, as well as the immigration caseworker. And I love how we're talking about our relationship to the school district. And I'm a former student of the school district, K through 12. So
wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, and Francisco.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Francisco Ortiz. I'm also a former student of our district. I'm a fifth grade teacher at Ford Elementary. And currently I'm out of the classroom to serve as Vice President for United Teachers of Richmond and the Community Schools Organizer for United Teachers of Richmond. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Alejandro, we'll have you last so you can start your presentation. And just as a reminder, we record this and we post it on our Facebook page, and we also send it out to our email list. So we document this information. It's really important to share it out.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, Alejandra.
So I'm Alejandra Chamberlain. I'm with the Contra Costa County Office of Education, and I'm the Youth Services Director. I've been with the agency for almost 11 years, and I've had the pleasure of being in this role for almost 9 years. And unlike you guys, I don't have the pleasure to say that I was a student in West Contra Costa Unified School District, but I did grow up in this county. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and was a Pittsburgh Unified School District student. I went to a community college and then had the opportunity to continue my education and get a bachelor's and a master's, and then came back to this community intentionally because I wanted to have an impact in my own community. So with that, I'll get started. Do I have privilege to share?
You do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and do that. Give me a second. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm the Director of Youth Services. So what that means is I wear a couple of different hats. So I have the pleasure of supporting the 18 districts as it relates We're then supporting our children and youth who are facing homelessness, as well as children and youth in foster care or involved in the juvenile justice system. We also have a workforce program that works with students of those three populations, as well as students who have a disability. So we do a little bit of everything. So I'm going to start with just an overview of what our program does on behalf of the 18 districts, and provides an overview of the law and ground you guys on what we also share with the districts. So McKinney-Vento is a federal law that requires all of LEAs, including districts and charters, to ensure that students facing homelessness have educational rights. And as you can see from here, it gives them educational rights and protects children and youth experiencing homelessness. There is authorized funding that goes to CDE from federal, that is the EHCY, so the Education for Homeless Children and Youth, which we are one of the grantees. It is a grant-funded program. We apply every 3 years, and only some county office of eds and some districts are selected. And we have been the pleasure of being selected for the last 20 years or so. Ensures that children and youth experiencing homelessness have equal and are able to immediately access public education. And as the district, whether you're a charter or an actual district, the LEA is required to provide services. And this usually happens by one identifying a homeless/foster liaison, who then supports all of their school sites. So the definition of homelessness for education is different than the HUD definition. The HUD definition really requires individuals to be literally homeless on the streets. Your typical vision of when someone thinks of homelessness. For education, it is an individual family who lacks fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And there are different examples of what that could look like. So being in a motel, hotel, doubled up is often most of our families, but it is doubled up because of a hardship, not because a culturally decision that they've made to live together. In a car or an abandoned building or shelters or housing agencies. So how we remove barriers to education is immediate enrollment, transportation assistance, tutoring, providing students with supplies, hygienes, clothing as needed, to make sure that they're fully engaged and participating. And when I say we, I speak on behalf of the County Office of Education, but also our 18 districts. Whether the 18 districts are receiving EHCY funding or not, they are required by McKinney-Vento law to identify a staff person at the district level who then supports their school sites, and also ensures that these same rights are given out to their students within their district or their charter. So you might be curious about how many students facing homelessness are in our county by definition of the education. So you'll see a list, 2,226 were identified for the 21-22 years. And then it gives a breakdown of all of the districts. West Contra Costa is at the bottom, by alphabetical order. 711 students were identified. When you think about identification, how does that happen? It often is a housing questionnaire that is provided at the beginning of the school year, either through through the registration process, or whether it is through a paper format. Then the school is required to make sure that that is identified within their student information system. For West Contra Costa, it is Power School. And so they identify that in Power School, and then they run a report and provide that to the County Office of Education on a yearly basis. We then provide it to CDE. So as it relates to EHCY funding and the mandate of McKinney-Vento, it does require that the districts and the charters support the students And so these are, when we're supporting them as the County Office of Ed, we have an extra layer. So not only are we ensuring that our students are getting enrolled, providing transportation, as well as all of the other supportive services that we can as our own LEA, but as a County Office of Education, we also have another layer, which is providing technical assistance and professional development. So school districts and charters are invited to quarterly collaborative meetings. We just held one, I want to say 2 weeks ago, where we talked about our countywide foster youth transportation MOU. And this allows for the districts and the charters to come together to learn about legislative updates, to make sure that they have the most updated information, whether it's a new initiative like the transportation MOU, or whether it's just being able to be around like-minded individuals who are facing the same issues and wanting to have a thought partner so that you could think through the situation. When part of the collaborative, we are providing professional development and technical assistance, but we also provide that one-on-one. We have an education liaison. Her name is Gina Bills. She is amazing. And she this year has reached out to every single charter and every single district to introduce herself and make herself available, not only to be a thought partner, but also to present and to co-present to the district staff so that they know how to identify our homeless students, how to make sure that that information is getting into their student information system so then that we could be intentional in providing services. We also collaborate with the COC, H3. I sit on the Council on Homelessness. I have the vocational education seat, and I really do the best that I can to make sure that I bring the thoughts and comments and concerns of our 18 districts, including our charters, to that meeting. And we collaborate with the shelters and the community partners. I have the pleasure of saying that Gina is actually working right now to ensure that the donation from White Pony Express for shoes and jackets and blankets gets out to all of our districts who need them and want to provide that to their families. And then as that leads into the next bullet point, which is a coordination of large scale countywide donations. That's an example. And then we this year have the pleasure of piloting a school site liaison project that allows us to work directly with the district liaison and identifies site liaisons. And we bring them together on a monthly basis so that they are the fingers and toes of the liaison who is at the district, because as you know, the liaison for example, West Contra Costa is not going to be able to serve 711 students. That's just impossible. Even if you have the most amazing liaison, you just can't get to everyone at this all at once. So having school site liaisons really allows the district to have someone who understands the law, understands the need of those families, understands the resources, and coordinates and collaborates, and then has someone at the district levels that really allows us to do the best that we can. And we know we're not doing everything for all of our families. I completely acknowledge that. But we definitely are intentional as a community and as a county office of ed and the districts doing the work. We also ensure that every district and every school site has this poster. We try to make sure that we do like a visit just to remind them to make sure this poster is at every school site, that it allows the parents, caregivers to know their rights and advocate for their students, or just to be able to feel like I'm going to share that I am facing this hardship and that I'm doubled up, and with the intent of getting some support, right? Because sometimes our families have that taboo associated to homelessness and don't want to share because they don't understand that they have rights. And who really wants to make themselves vulnerable with the intention of knowing that there's not going to be support? So we do remind all of our districts every year, and we get these posters for them, and we mail them out or we deliver them so that every school site has this poster out and in their main office or registrar office, attendance office. So a little bit more that I want to share with you all. I know that's the last of my presentation, and hold on, as I don't recall how to stop sharing. Give me a second. I was hiding the actual area that allows me to share. So now that I've stopped the sharing, one thing that I do want to acknowledge, it just happened to be, I don't believe in just happened. I feel the universe works in such a beautiful way that you have Francisco here, because we're both actually have a lens of community school. As I mentioned to you, when I was with the city of San Pablo, I had the pleasure of really learning from that community of what it was looking like to build this community school. And I never quite walked away from it. I knew that the energy and the effort and the momentum that really looking at your community, hearing from your stakeholders, your children, your youth, your parents, your caregivers, and being intentional could never be a recipe for disaster. And so when I left the city of San Pablo, one of the main partners at that time was United Way. She reached out to me and she said, you know, what about an idea to think about McKinney-Vento funding and bridging community school work? And so at that time, our grant had just put out the application, and we were really trying to figure out, is there a way to bridge community school with McKinney-Vento? And it didn't quite work out, but I wasn't quite ready to let it go. So I kept it on my radar, and I tried to fold it into our districts to think about just the work that they were doing as a liaison, and to know that the community school model really allows for the coordination and collaboration of resources, and to implement that through the lens of what our students facing homelessness would need. So I kept at it, and it didn't really quite take off the way I wanted it to take off, which was okay. Then CDE, because of the ARA funding, dedicated funding to technical assistance statewide, and with the support of Superintendent Lynn Mackey. I have to say that in my 8 years, this work is a lot of work, but under her leadership, it has grown and felt so supportive, because she understands how important it is not only to serve our families facing homelessness, but also our families and children and youth in foster care, as well as involved in the juvenile justice system. And through her support, she definitely encouraged me and was quite supportive in applying for the technical assistance statewide. And so we did, and we were awarded. We were one of 3. San Diego is the other lead, and LA is the other COE leading this effort with me. As part of the application, I made it a commitment to fold in community school. And so we're now in the process of providing mini grants to some LEAs within the region that I'm supporting. So we have the pleasure of supporting 25 county office of eds. And within Contra Costa, we are actually providing a mini grant to West Contra Costa Unified School District through Martine's leadership, to really look at how you could fold in the lens of taking community school work, but focus on our McKinney-Vento students. So what does that really look like? And that hopefully this year and next year, that's what we're hoping to really document and get some expertise, but also go through the process of like knowing we may not get it right, but it's the intention and really documenting it so that hopefully we inspire CDE so that when they continue to fund this, there is an automatic call out to the community to be intentional about folding in our most vulnerable populations, which is our children and youth facing homelessness, with community school money, so that there's sustainability. Because I know it and I hear it all the time, one liaison for 711 students is just not enough. So with that, I will mute myself, or I will make myself available for questions.
Yes, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Yeah, I have a few questions, but let's see if our any participants have any questions. You can just chime right in or raise your hand, whichever. Any questions?
I'll ask a question. Thank you so much for sharing that, Alejandra. I know that at the last State Board of Education meeting, they announced the Contra Costa County Office of Education with awarded one of the coordination grants in the state. So I'm really excited to see that. And so I was wondering, do you have any idea of what types of support?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear some of it. I could hear some background noise. I don't know if it's just me.
No, it's not just you.
Oh, I apologize. I'm not in my office today, so I'm in a coffee shop. So if you heard that background noise,
That's better.
I'll
No.
Okay. I was just wondering about the coordination grants that our county office of education received, or the coordination grant. And so I was just wondering what type of supports might LEAs at the local level might be able to receive, given that our district is also in the process of having a collective impact committee, which would bridge in multiple government agencies or leaders along with our superintendent so that this plan can be sustainable in the future.
Right. I am aware of that. I've had a meeting or a quick discussion with my senior director, Nick Berger, and really pitched the idea of whether that is led by myself or our senior director, Ms. Tokyo, and I might have said that wrong, so forgive me. So part of what we're looking at is really what does that support look like, right? And so I have made myself available to our leadership group to say, I know I'm not the expert on community schools. I definitely feel that there's always room for growth, but I definitely have made myself available to ensure that when we're looking at that collective impact and really ensuring that we're being strategic and mindful of collaboration and coordination, that I give them my perspective, and not only working with West Contra Costa, but also having the pleasure of facilitating mini grants in other regions like Marin and San Joaquin and so forth. So there's more to come. I don't have that answer in regards to what does the support, what will it look like? That is definitely in conversation, not only with my direct supervisor, but the other senior director. Also, Superintendent Lynn Mackey is aware of my interest and love for community schools and wanting to make that connection, right? That layer of support and connection. I know that in our county, West Contra Costa and Pittsburgh are the two districts that have received implementation grants, and John Sweat and Mount D have received learning grants. Where it hasn't been quite clear, and this is where I'm wanting to get some information from my leadership, is whether that funding that's coming from the state is meant for what portion of the support, whether it's the implementation or whether it's the planning grantees. And that's where I need to follow up. I definitely know that my intention is to at least be that liaison between West Contra Costa and my group at the very minimum, as we try to figure it out and provide some actual direct services, or what that will look like as we roll out the work.
Okay,
Not the answer that I would want to give, but the best answer at this moment without all the information.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have a question.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
I'm just curious from the standpoint of the each of the sites, as the site liaisons are looking at their work. Who are you? How do you envision, and who do you envision the site liaison to be? The principal, or a lead teacher, or a counselor? And what do you envision that person doing?
So ultimately, it really depends on who has the time, right? We know that many counselors can be the dedicated person, and often we find that that's probably the best position to support students because they are aware of services, counseling techniques, and able to really make that connection and be like the social worker for the site. But we are also aware that counselors are wearing and have large case loads. And so you might have 400, 500 students assigned to a counselor. And now you're asking them to be even more intentional and strategic when working with a child or a youth who's facing homelessness. And some counselors are amazing and can accomplish that. And so others just may not have the capacity. And so our recommendation to the district has been to really think about a person who's passionate, who really cares about the community and wants to make an impact and has really the dedication to the work. The process of working with the family, that's something that we can support the district in supporting that liaison to gain the skills and understand the population and work with the population. And I say that because as you guys know, hiring within the school districts has been a challenge this year, more than it has been in all other years. And so when we kicked off this school site liaison, the districts were saying, we just can't find the person, right? Like we're trying to really think about the counselor or the outreach worker or whatever, and they're just overwhelmed and there's just so much work. And I said to them, then let's be creative, because the idea is to spark that level of commitment within a school site, regardless of who it is. So it can be a registrar, it can be the attendance person, it can be a coach who makes a commitment to check in with those children and youth on a weekly basis, and then connects with the district, whether it's on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, and then also connects as a larger group where it's the County Office of Ed, the school district liaison, and then all of the site liaisons coming together once a month to troubleshoot, to learn a new topic around identification or resources, or how to have that sensitive conversation. So it really can be anyone. Obviously, we do want them to be employees of the district and know the community. This is a pilot. It doesn't exist in every community. So there are county office of eds that only have one district liaison, and that is all. This has been a collaboration with those districts over the last couple of years, because it can feel a little protective for the liaison, meaning, are they going to understand the families? Are they going to be kind to them? What if they don't know the laws? And so the district liaison can feel a little protective of their own families. And so, but it's working through that process, being that supporting lead to the district, who then supports the school site. And I could talk forever, so I will be mindful.
Thank you.
No, that is really important. And I'll just say this, in West Contra Costa, if you have 700 families, right, 711 families who are in crisis, this is just simply families in crisis, that should bubble up to the top. It shouldn't be an extra duty that somebody has to carve out time from something else they're doing. I'm not hearing you say, for example, so for me, I would think one of the groups of people that are probably the closest to our students are teachers, right? More so than the registrar or even certainly the admins, right? The teachers know the students. And have you offered this? Is this being offered as a stipend or an additional opportunity for teachers? Is that true as you go from school to school?
Yes.
Or yes?
We've offered it to our role as a county office of ed. We work through the director of student services and the lead, and then we give them that discretion to make that choice in regards to who is that staff member. Is it a counselor? Is it a teacher? Is it a coach? Is it a principal? And so they make that decision based on knowing their community.
The district, excuse me, the district or the site? Who makes that
the
decision?
District. So, for example, for West Contra Costa, you have Martin, who is your director of student services, who oversees the foster and homeless, and then the district liaison is Julie. And so then Julie, through both of them, understanding their families, understanding what the community needs, then they would roll it out within the different school sites to identify and see who's open to taking on this extra responsibility, right? In a perfect world, you would have a funded liaison at the district level. So Julie would be solely dedicated to your McKinney-Vento students, and then Julie would have somebody supporting the foster youth students. Right now, Julie's doing both. Most of our districts, the liaison is carrying out both responsibilities, and it's a lot. I think when the district makes a commitment to fund 2 liaisons at the district level, it will make a difference. And when the district makes an effort to support school site liaisons, that would be amazing. But as you guys know, districts are faced with difficult budget situations. And we obviously know that the County Office of Ed is not mom and dad to the districts. We're like a sister to the district. And so our role is really that supporting and guiding role. And we know that they have to make tough decisions. And we understand. I wish I had a case manager for every district that would support foster youth and homeless youth, and there's just not the funding, right? But my recommendation to every district is to split those 2 responsibilities of foster and homeless at a very minimum.
Yeah.
Then if you get to the next layer, then even more amazing. But as I acknowledge, this funding is federal funding. There is work around really advocating for the state funding, but there's no state funding. So really this is a required responsibility without additional funding.
So who is doing the work around advocating for state funding?
There's a couple of different advocates out there. The National Center for Youth Law is one of them. John Burton is another one. I know that we're collaborating with UC Berkeley, City Plus Schools, and they're documenting. She actually has a couple fellows who are working with her to document and really make that case around how this work is underfunded.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. I had some questions, but your answer is so thorough. You answered my questions. I had the questions about the site liaison. That seems to be like a pivotal place for us to focus on, those site liaisons.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested in the tech and the professional development as well. So thank you so much for coming. And we're going to continue this a little bit about the schools. And let's go ahead and start with Francisco. Go ahead and begin. Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So I'm just gonna share a short presentation to provide some context for folks who may not be familiar with the grant program, if that's all right. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think you're able to see my screen, yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right, so thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share updates on the community or the California Community Schools Partnership Program and how it relates to West Contra Costa. So the California Community Schools Partnership Program in July of 2021 was approved by the California State Legislature with a $3.1 million investment. It actually this year it was increased by the governor and the state legislature by 4.1 billion, and the program has been extended until 2031. So this program is here to stay. It was originally for about 5 years with the original planning, but now it's been extended to the next 9 years. And so the grant is an equity strategy. We know that many of our students and families face barriers outside of the classroom that hinder their opportunities to learn and thrive in school. And so this grant is really geared towards supporting families who are furthest from opportunity. And it's really defining as having 80% or more students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, or also unduplicated student counts is another way that the state will determine that. The CSPP program is also aligned to the state funding priorities. And so these 5 priorities are aligned to the Community Schools Partnership Program, which is, funding for youth-based behavioral health, expanding learning time, both in school and outside, or in the classroom and outside the classroom, focusing on universal transitional kindergarten, increasing staff for schools that are high needs, especially that are hard to staff as well, and then also focusing on professional learning for educators. And so what we were able to apply for, the implementation grants, and that is up to $500,000 per school, depending on how many students that school serves who receive free and reduced lunch. And so because we received an implementation grant for 22 of our schools, we received a implementation grant of $29.5 million, which is the 5th largest grant in the entire state. And West Contra Costa is not the 5th largest district in the entire state. It's around, in the high 30s in terms of population and size. And so it really took a lot of effort, both from our district leadership, from our educators who are at the sites, working with their principals to align the priorities to the 4 pillars of the Community Schools Partnership Program, which are integrated student supports, expanded learning opportunities and time, collaborative leadership practices for educators and administrators, and family and community engagement. And so all LEAs who had 50% or more students who were English language learners, low income or foster youth, and or would have higher rates of dropouts. And so even though 50% of students for the schools who had 50% or more unduplicated student counts were eligible, priority was given to schools who had 80% or more unduplicated student counts, and where there was a strong relationship or a strong partnership between labor and
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And so, as I said before, applicants with 80% or more unduplicated counts were given a priority for that funding. And so that's why many of our schools were prioritized for that funding. Although we had 32 schools who applied for the funding, 27 schools who applied for this funding, only 22 received funding in this first round. But there is going to be another round starting in January, where other schools who previously applied before and didn't get the grant funding could apply and potentially get it this time around. And so here are the priorities to have that had, or some of the prioritizations for the funding, which was, how are we going to be able to expand access to integrated students for our students and families? How do we involve multiple education partners and stakeholders in the discovery process and in the power sharing? How are we going to be able to provide trauma-informed mental health supports for our students and families? Also providing early care for children up to 5 years old. Finding, identifying, and cooperating agencies, which we work with 3 currently right now who are serving as our lead agencies for community schools. And then identifying a plan for the community school services after the grant expiration. And so that speaks to the collective impact committee or the systems change collaborative that we are trying to form, or that's going to start forming in February, which would bring a larger constituency of policymakers, funders, and government officials as well. And so the grant fund staffing cost, which includes a community school coordinator, the coordination of services, the community stakeholder engagement through a comprehensive needs and assets assessment, ongoing data collection, and then training and professional development on social, emotional, trauma-informed practices and well-being. And the additional funding is going to be allocated to the technical supports or the technical assistance center, which Alejandra spoke to earlier, which our Contra Costa Office of Education received a coordination grant, and also the Santa Clara Office of Education as well, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's just giving you a little bit of context as to where we are. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just give you a little bit of context of where we are currently. So the grant was approved through a robust discovery process where the UTR site representative worked with their site principals to start an opt-in process. And we had multiple small focus groups with educators, with students, with community-based organizations, and families as well as staff. And so through that discovery process, we learned also that some of the findings in that discovery process also aligned to what the regional listening sessions that the California Department of Education, the Partnership for Future of Learning, and the Alliance for Men and Boys of Color have found, which was we really want to have relationship-centered schools that are built on trust. We want to have schools in which power is shared with multiple education partners. And we also want to make sure that the curriculum is reflective of not only the is rooted in the culture and in the community, but it's also reflective of our student population. And so I had advocated on multiple occasions through our steering committee, our district-wide steering committee, which is chaired by our district representative, which is Martine Blake, myself for UTR, and Jora Washington, who is the City of Sao Paulo representative, who the City of Sao Paulo has been a great champion and a forward thinker in the community schools movement, at least in our region, in our district. And so through that collaborative process, we have been able to bring in multiple stakeholders and really think about how we're going to make this into an empowering, transformative model that isn't just something that is top down or something that is not reflective of multiple different stakeholders. And so as we were moving on through this process, I suggested hey, let's update our community schools resolution, because the last one was done in 2012. And so we found a little bit of not a lot of traction there. And so I also noticed that we were having our meetings in the mornings during weekdays, and say, hey, maybe we should switch our meeting times to include more families or students as well. And so we didn't get a chance to do that. So how about we bring in some organizations who are already doing some of that work, either family and community engagement, or are working with students. So I suggested we bring in, the Rise Youth Center, who's been doing amazing work with our students, Healthy Contra Costa, who's been doing some really great work with family empowerment and residential leadership. And so after a couple of other sessions, they were brought in. And so as we were embarking on our needs and asset assessment, they kind of echoed the same sentiment. Hey, where are our families? Where are our students? These are the folks who are most, the folks that we're talking about, but we're not including them in these spaces. And so we had to take a pause, given everything that is happening in schools with staffing shortages, and educators in West Contra Costa have been without a contract since June or July of this year. And so I'll get into that a little bit later as well. But in terms of the community schools, we really, and I'm speaking for myself and UTR, we really wanted to make sure that this grant and that this opportunity for transformative community schools is really memorialized and isn't something that is going to go away with different leadership changes in our district. We know that the district central office has high turnover rate. We know that many of these folks may not be rooted in our community or don't have a lot of time invested in our communities. And so we really want to make sure that this is the power sharing is with our students, with our families, with our educators, and with our community-based partners. And so we introduced language into the collective bargaining agreement that would memorialize the power sharing both at the site level and at the district level, which is consistent with the 3 co-chair model that we have used up to this point. And so when we introduced that language, that seemed to be something that the district is not interested in doing, despite it having backing by the leading scholars in community schools out of the UCLA Center for Community Schooling. And they said, which was interesting, when we brought it into the negotiations, that they saw this more as a resolution, whereas before in a meeting that we had with Dr. Hurst, he had stated that he saw resolutions more as aspirational and not really holding any teeth, which is something that was corroborated by our district representative. So it was interesting to see that turnaround at the bargaining table. And most recently, they did have the district did have a counter proposal, but they introduced an element that one is not aligned to the grant application, and that really holds power at the district level. So right now we have 3 co-chairs, myself, district, and community based funder, which is the city of San Pablo. And so what they did in their latest proposal is they added another principal as a co-chair. They removed the city of San Pablo, and they wanted to have the district, a principal, myself, and then another co-chair that would be chosen, which we don't know how. And so that is really interesting. We really want to make sure that we place the power in families and students. And so we countered with, okay, well, we're going to take away the administrative, because that's never really been a part of the process. And we really want to provide that to a non-employed family member, a caregiver, or a community-based organization who's already been doing this work. And so just yesterday, the district bargaining team declared impasse on United Teachers of Richmond, both on the community schools article and on salary. And so I just wanted to just share with you all that, you know, for this year, the district has received 13.26% in ongoing funding for cost of living adjustment, and they have offered UTR 6%, which is half of that. For 2023, just yesterday, there was a state report saying that there is going to be a projected 8.73% in a cost of living adjustment, and the district offered 4%. And this is the highest cost of living adjustment since 1979-80. We are one of the lowest paid teacher, or we're some of the lowest paid in the district, in the area, I should say. We're bringing in other teachers from other countries, which were supposed to be here in October, but are not going to be here until January. And so that's also in addition to the 148 certificated vacancies that we have on EdJoin. And that's also to share that 3,000 students, over 3,000 students started the year without a certificated permanent teacher. And so this is really a shocking turn of events, knowing that there are multiple other districts around us who have settled contracts, who are providing their educators with multiple opportunities to not have salary caps, meaning that would keep educators in our district, if they had been teaching for 10 or 15 years, they couldn't move those seniority dates into another district, whereas now those are gone. So you can go to San Ramon if you're a 20-year awesome teacher, and you can take that with you, and plus get a 9% salary increase, which is what our district is not currently offering. You can go into Martinez. They had a 10% raise last year. We didn't have anything, and now they're going to be getting a 9% increase this year. We also know John Sweat, Pittsburgh, they received a 9%. And so we feel that this salary proposal is very affordable from our district, and this would really help keep our educators that we have currently, and would make us competitive in comparison to other districts. And so we're really concerned that our leadership does not want to move forward with honoring and valuing their educators that have been here through the pandemic, have really ushered in or welcomed, maybe not welcome, but have taken on so many different challenges throughout the last couple of years that we can't come in an agreement on something that is fair and that values our educators. And so we will continue to speak to our community on this. We have some meetings with families, parents, and really want to make sure that our families, our educators, and our students and community knows that we will continue to hold our district accountable and we will continue to fight for our students and our communities.
Great. Oh, thank you very much, Francisco. Well, let's see. Does anybody have any questions real quick?
I do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Madeline.
So let's just think, what are the next steps? Is the next step fact finding?
Yeah, so we're at impasse and we were going to have to go through a state mediation. A state representative will come and mediate, and then we'll go into fact finding, where we will build our case for why we think community schools should be included in the collective bargaining agreement and share the different types of proposals. Ours are aligned to the grant application, aligned to what we've done so far, and also aligned to the latest research on community schools, which is
and the same thing is
the
true,
grant program.
excuse me, and the same thing is true with the salaries, right? The conversation around agreement around the numbers themselves, right?
That's correct. We've seen that in their latest budget projections. There's always a immense amount of money in a budget item called books and supplies, which always tends to be overinflated, and then in the actual spending, that's a lot less. And so we've also seen the increase in central office personnel as well, which has made a significant increase over the last 2 years. And so, yeah, we will be gathering all of that information as well to share with the fact finding panel.
In 2018, we were the highest paid district in the county.
Yep.
2018, that's not that long ago. It's when I was on the board, right? That was one of our major accomplishments and goals, was to be able to attract and retain by being the highest paid. And we did it. So it just shows that you have to be vigilant and continue to work together. So what do you need? What do you need from the community?
Well, what we need from our community is as much pressure on our district to settle a fair contract. We know that our students benefit best when they have a permanent certificated credentialed teacher in front of them. We know that many of those students, especially in our hard to staff schools and hard to staff positions, do not currently have those supports. And we want to make sure that our families and our educators know that they can come to a school that is a stable environment. We don't want to have kids going into different classrooms because there aren't any substitutes, their teacher is not there. We know that many, especially secondary students who are maybe Spanish speakers, and if a teacher is not there or they don't have a teacher, then they're not really getting that world language instruction or that AP chemistry instruction. If they don't have that teacher who was skilled enough to provide that level of instruction. And so we want to make sure that our students do have a world-class education, because we know that these types of issues are not being widely felt in more affluent communities. And so this is really an issue of educational justice, of racial justice, and really making sure that our students are provided with the same opportunities that any student is entitled to it and deserves.
Well, and you can layer on what we just heard about the homeless children, right? Children who qualify under housing insecurity. All of those children, I am sure, are also the children who are in the vulnerable classrooms, right? That's where they are. So there's no end to the injustice that's coming in. Do you know, is there any petition that the community members can sign? Many people, this video will be sent out to many different groups and organizations who will want to help. Is there somewhere we can direct them to start to help?
Yes, I can share with both you and Consuelo. We delivered a letter to the school board. We're still going to continue to collect more signatures from community-based organizations that we're meeting with this year. So we're this week and following into next week. But it has both the article that we proposed. It also includes the recommendations from the racially just, privilege-centered schools. The listening sessions that were done, especially focused here in the Bay Area. It has links to relevant journal and peer-reviewed articles by the leading scholars on community schools that backs our point. And it also includes the summary of what we've what we've gone through thus far, so that our community understands that this is not something that is solely for teachers. This is really focused on making sustainable community lasting impact for our district. Because again, we don't know who our next chief academic officer is or who our next superintendent is. And so this is to live beyond them. This is to live beyond me as a community schools organizer, because this is really about centering that power sharing for our community. And that's what from this experience, that's what power is not willing to give up, because that seems to be the biggest part. The shared leadership model is one of the pillars of community schools, and that seems to be one of the hardest ones to employ.
Okay, thank you.
Send us all of that information and we can distribute that. We can also post things on our various Facebook pages, and so that we can pass that out. We have networks, and most of the people who see this, they have their networks as well. So we will get the word out as much as we can and support this. So thank you so much, Francisco. This was really informative and necessary. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from anybody else? Or how about announcements? We'll go to our announcement.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say, Francisco, if you think that maybe a letter of support from the congressman might help, I'm happy to pass this along to our legislative team.
Thank you, Magdalena. I'll write down your information and we'll definitely get in contact with you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask something? You mentioned our congressman. Do you think we would be able to talk to our congressman about the funding crisis for the conversation we had earlier around the homeless children?
I don't see why not. I'm happy to pass this along to our scheduler as well. I know that the congressman has been, lately he's been more aggressive about reaching out to West County just because we're losing this out of the county early January. So I'm happy to bring this up to our team and see if we can schedule an appointment. I know that he's having MDOs early next week, which are mobile district office hours. But I'll pass this along to see if this is a possibility.
Please do. I would love to talk to him about that, and maybe even see if we could partner with the League of Women Voters, could come in and take this on and lead to change how this is an unfunded mandate that is serving the poorest, the most vulnerable families in America. And I can't believe that the federal government can't find the funding to make this work for our families. So that's.
Yeah, and the congressman is on the education committee. So this is really important to him as well. So Yeah, would you mind sending me an email as to maybe, when you would like to meet?
I will
who
absolutely
will
do
be
that.
there, what you would like to discuss specifically. And then I'll bring this up to our DC team as well as our scheduler and our district director.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you so much. Do we have any announcements of any other information that anybody wants to share? Okay, well, this has been so informative and useful and important for all of us. And I thank you all for being here, and we will spread the word as much as far as we can. And also, yeah, we need to pull in our legislators or policymakers and include them in, maybe we'll send this out to them as well.
Mhm.
As many as we can. So we'll be doing that as well, because we need that support. And like you said, Francisco, they need to have the pressure, and they need to understand how important this is to our community. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Any last words or comments?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving. Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
All right. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn it off.